The silence in the boardroom was absolute, heavy enough to crush a man's soul, broken only by the sharp, rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. My 3 children sat across from me, their faces glowing with a mixture of triumph and poorly concealed impatience. They looked like vultures circling a dying animal, waiting for the final breath, so they could tear into the meat. On the other side of the polished mahogany table stood Mr. Siddiqui, my attorney of 30 years. He held the document in his hands, the document that would transfer my entire life's work, a $500 million empire, directly into the hands of my ungrateful offspring. Mr. Siddiqui was a man of stone, a veteran of legal battles, who had seen families tear each other apart for decades. Nothing usually fazed him. But today, his hands were shaking. The paper rattled audibly in his grip. He looked at the first page, then the second, his eyes scanning the standard legal jargon. But when he reached the final paragraph, the single sentence I had insisted on adding just hours before this meeting, he froze. His breath hitched in his throat, a sharp audible gasp that echoed in the quiet room. All color drained from his face, leaving him looking as pale as the paper he held. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of horror and awe, and then he looked at my children with something that resembled pity. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words seemed stuck. My eldest son, Rohan, leaned back in his leather chair, tapping a gold pen against the table. He smirked, mistaking the lawyer's terror for hesitation. "Come on, Siddiqui," he sneered, checking his expensive watch, a watch I had bought him. "We don't have all day. Just read the transfer clause so Dad can sign it and go back to bed. He looks tired." My daughter-in-law, Alina, giggled, scrolling through her phone, likely already picking out the mansion she planned to buy in London. My youngest, Seima, was simply staring at the ceiling, bored, probably dreaming of the sports cars he would crash within a month. They had no idea. They thought they were the predators in this room. They didn't realize that they were the prey, and the trap had already snapped shut the moment they walked through that door. To understand why my lawyer was trembling, and why I was about to destroy the lives of the people I raised, you have to understand the empire I built. I started with nothing. I was a man who hauled sacks of cement on his back for pennies. I ate 1 meal a day for 5 years, so I could save enough to buy a single loom. From that one machine, I built a textile giant. I built skyscrapers. I commanded respect in boardrooms across the world. But while I was busy building a kingdom, I failed to build a family. I gave them everything I never had. I sent them to the best schools in Switzerland, bought them cars before they could drive, and covered up their mistakes with checkbooks. I thought I was being a good father. I was wrong. I was creating monsters. The realization hit me 3 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday. I had felt a sharp pain in my chest and had gone home early from the office. The house was quiet, or so I thought. As I walked past the library, I heard voices. It was Rohan and Alina. They were laughing. I stopped, intending to go in and greet them, but then I heard my name. "The old man is taking too long to kick the bucket," Rohan said, his voice dripping with venom. I spoke to the doctors. "His heart is weak, but he could live another 10 years. 10 years, Alina. I can't wait that long. The market is peaking. We need to sell the company now to get the maximum valuation." I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Alina's voice followed, cold and calculating. "Just get him to sign the power of attorney. Tell him it's for tax purposes. Or better yet, declare him mentally incompetent. We can put him in that facility upstate. The one with the high walls. Once he's in there, he can't stop us from liquidating the assets." Seima chimed in then, laughing. "Yeah, put him in the cheap ward. Why waste the inheritance on a luxury suite for a vegetable? He won't know the difference. My heart didn't break in that moment, it turned to ice. The pain in my chest vanished, replaced by a cold, burning clarity. I walked away silently, retreating to my room. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, staring at the wall, mourning the death of my children. Because to me, the children I thought I had were dead. These strangers in my house were parasites. They didn't want my legacy, they wanted my liquidation. They wanted to strip my carcass and dance on my grave. By morning, the father was gone. The businessman had returned. And the businessman had a strategy. I played their game. For the next 2 weeks, I acted frail. I let my hands shake when I held a cup of tea. I pretended to forget names. I saw the gleam in their eyes as they watched me deteriorate. When Rohan approached me with the papers, framing it as a retirement plan to relieve me of my burdens, I didn't fight. I looked at him with watery, trusting eyes and said, "You're right, son. I'm too old. It's time for the new generation to take over." The joy on their faces was disgusting. They moved fast, setting up this meeting with the lawyers to make it official. They wanted it ironclad, so I couldn't change my mind. That brings us back to this moment. The boardroom. The silence. The trembling lawyer. "Mr. Siddiqui," I said softly, my voice steady and strong, shedding the fake tremor I had used for weeks. "Please, read the final condition. My children are eager to claim their inheritance." Siddiqui swallowed hard. He adjusted his glasses, sweat beading on his forehead. He looked at Rohan, then at the paper. "Are you sure, Sultan?" he whispered to me. "Once this is read, once they sign, there is no going back. This is the nuclear option. Read it," I commanded. Siddiqui cleared his throat. His voice shook as he began. "According to the terms of this irrevocable transfer, Mr. Sultan Ahmed hereby grants full ownership of Ahmed Industries, all liquid assets, all real estate holdings, and all future revenue streams to Rohan Ahmed, Seima Ahmed, and Alina Ahmed, to be divided equally." Finally, Rohan shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "God, you dragged that out, Siddiqui. Give me the pen. Sit down." Siddiqui's voice cracked like a whip, surprising everyone. The lawyer stood up, his demeanor changing from fear to professional severity. "I have not finished. There is a conditionally attached liability clause. Clause 4B. The poison pill provision." "What poison pill?" Alina snapped. We reviewed the drafts. There was no poison pill. "It was added this morning," Siddiqui said, glancing at me, "by the current owner, as is his right before signature." He lifted the paper closer to his face. The clause states, "Upon the transfer of assets, the new owners, Rohan, Seima, and Alina, automatically and irrevocably assume full personal liability for the company's shadow ledger. Rohan scoffed. "Shadow ledger? What is this, a spy movie? Dad doesn't have debt. The company is profitable." "The company is profitable," Siddiqui read, his eyes locking onto Rohan's. "However, the initial capital used to expand Ahmed Industries in 1995, and subsequent injections of cash during the 2008 crisis, was structured as callable high-interest loans from a private holding entity known as the Phoenix Trust. While Sultan Ahmed was the CEO, the Phoenix Trust deferred all payments. However, the contract explicitly states that upon any change of ownership or management, the full amount of the loan, plus 30 years of compounded interest, becomes immediately due and payable within 24 hours. The room went deadly silent. Seima stopped staring at the ceiling. Alina put her phone down. "How much?" Rohan asked, his voice suddenly very small. How much is the loan? Siddiqui turned the page. He took a deep breath. The principal was 50 million. With the compounded interest clauses triggered by the change of ownership, the total debt currently owed by the company is $620 million. Alina screamed. It wasn't a word. It was a high-pitched shriek of pure panic. 600, but the company is only worth 500 million. Correct, Siddiqui continued, his voice regaining its lawyerly coldness. Which means the company is technically insolvent the moment you sign these papers. But, since you are signing as general partners to bypass the tax laws, as you requested to save money, you are not protected by limited liability. You are accepting personal responsibility for the debt gap. He looked at them over the rim of his glasses. In simple terms, if you sign this, you get the company. But you also immediately owe the Phoenix Trust $120 million out of your own pockets. If you cannot pay within 24 hours, the Phoenix Trust has the legal right to seize all your personal assets, your homes, your cars, your jewelry, your private bank accounts, and launch criminal proceedings for fraud if the funds are not produced. Rohan looked at me, his face a mask of horror. Dad? What is this? Who is the Phoenix Trust? I leaned forward, clasping my hands together. A cold smile played on my lips. I am the Phoenix Trust, Rohan. The realization hit them like a physical blow. They gasped in unison. I set up the trust 30 years ago, I explained calmly. I loaned my own money to my own company to build this empire, protecting it against exactly this kind of situation. I knew that one day, someone might try to steal it from me. I just never thought it would be my own blood. I stood up slowly. You wanted the business. You wanted the control. You wanted me out. Fine. Sign the papers. The company is yours. And the debt is yours. Pay me my $620 million by tomorrow morning, or I will have the court seize everything you own, down to the shoes on your feet. Rohan dropped the pen, as if it were burning hot. He looked at the document, then at me. He was trembling now, far worse than the lawyer had been. You trapped us. I tested you, I corrected him. And you failed. You wanted to put me in a cheap nursing home. You wanted to declare me mentally incompetent. Well, this incompetent old man just outmaneuvered you three geniuses without lifting a finger. Alina was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad, please. We didn't mean it. It was just talk. We love you. Love, I said, tasting the word like sour milk. You love my money. And now, you have a choice. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city skyline, the empire I had built. Option A, you sign the papers. You take the company, you pay the debt, and we never speak again. Option B, you refuse to sign. The company stays with me. But, because you plotted against me, I am cutting you off. No more allowances. No more credit cards. No more rent payments. You are all fired from your honorary positions at the company effective immediately. You can't do that. Seymour shouted, his voice cracking. We don't know how to do anything else. How will we live? I turned back to them, my expression hard as granite. There is an opening in the factory. On the assembly line. It pays minimum wage. It's hard work. It involves lifting heavy boxes and standing for 12 hours a day. It's exactly the job I started with 40 years ago. If you want to eat, if you want a roof over your heads, you will report to the foreman at 6 a.m. tomorrow. You will work. You will sweat. You will learn the value of a single dollar. I walked towards the door. Mr. Siddiqui packed up the papers, a faint smile finally touching his lips. Dad. Rohan called out, falling to his knees. Please. Don't do this. I stopped at the door and looked back one last time. I am doing this because I love you, I lied. Or maybe I wasn't lying. Maybe this was the only way to save them from themselves. You wanted my legacy. Now, you have to earn it. I walked out of the boardroom, leaving them in the silence, the ticking clock the only sound in a room filled with the ruins of their greed. I didn't know if they would show up at the factory tomorrow. I didn't know if they would survive the real world. But as I walked down the hall, I felt lighter than I had in years. The parasites were gone. The empire was safe. And for the first time in a long time, Sultan Ahmed was truly free.